The most important part of your portfolio is not actually your portfolio. And what I mean by that is you need to have a good portfolio, but almost what's equally or more important is actually the work you do to understand the context and how your portfolio will be used before, during, and after an interview. And so what I mean by that is people who do their homework, they sit there and they actually study the job descriptions and requirements of the place they're applying for, and then they reconfigure their entire portfolio, not just individual projects, but they look at the whole thing and they ask themselves, how does this body of work hold up against those job requirements? And they will actually go through and they will highlight or add details to different projects or different parts of their portfolio, or even write up whole new things to put in it. Not necessarily new projects, but new things around soft skills, like if there's a job requirement saying, you're going to lead design workshops, well, no one project might be about leading design workshops, but maybe you know how to lead one. Maybe you actually just write something about how you lead a design workshop, and that actually becomes part of your portfolio. So then you're beginning to augment that and actually think about that before you walk through that door. And so that's the first thing, is think about how it's going to happen beforehand. So it's that understanding that context and then setting up your portfolio so it's going to work well in that context. The next piece is what's going to happen during. And so obviously, if you do your homework about your company, you want to understand how and what the interview process might look like. And so the best thing you can do is actually record yourself trying to talk about your different projects and how you might approach it. This weird thing happens when you actually are forced to kind of put yourself on stage, so to speak. And when you're in the room, you're going to be able to, you're going to have to know how to speak to that and what it feels like and feel that pressure. And it's going to be nervous. So you want to get as much practice as you can doing that. And it's something we see with like great athletes. They film themselves doing the same thing over and over and then study that film. So even right now, as I'm recording myself, I kind of have this like, oh, I'm on, right? And so it's making me think about how I'm being perceived. So actually going through your portfolio, because when you're sitting there making it, you're telling yourself that story in your head. But if you actually go through and try to explain it to somebody as you're putting on a miniature presentation, just to your phone or a friend or whatever, make sure you record it and watch it again and again. And that's going to make you think about how you tell that story. And then again, is the way you're telling that story meeting those job requirements and communicating to the interviewers who you are and the talent that you're bringing to the table to match their needs. And then the last piece is what happens with your portfolio afterwards. So after an interview is over, there used to be once upon a time when portfolios were less digital, and some people still do this, they create design artifacts that are leave behinds. And so it might be a little printout of one of your projects or something that after you leave, people are still going to be looking at your stuff. And so maybe you've got something in their hands and they're talking through it with the group and trying to decide how they feel about you. There's the same way to kind of do that in your portfolio. So you can either, I've seen this where people had thank you pages specifically to the group they just talked to that they managed to put up like within an hour of being interviewed. So when we went to go back and look at their portfolio again, it's like, thanks, Chris, for, spending time with me and getting to know you is great. Like they actually built it into the site, which was impressive. And I've also seen things where, again, I'll use the design workshop as an example. We had questions about a design workshop and how this person would interact, what their experience level was with that. And we didn't have a lot of time in the couple hours that we were talking to them, but they went back and they actually dug up a blog post that they had written and sent us the link. They're like, here's what I do with design workshops and my experience with it. So they attached that to one of their projects that we were talking to. They dropped a link in there and sent it back, an email back to us. That's the sort of thing that helps us go, wow, you're not still in the room anymore, but wow, we can keep digging in your portfolio and see more information that was relevant to the conversations we were having. So that's the three big things. The homework of what you do to understand the context of how your portfolio is going to be used before, during, and obviously after. You can't do that homework until after you've left the room. But there's a possibility that if you think about, design workshops, maybe that's things you need to start documenting and putting up somewhere online anyway, so you can point to it either in that meeting or afterwards.